Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. In this week's show, we're going to be talking about the difference between Spotify and Etsy. So let's get into it.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Print on Demand cast. My name is Travis, and as you have probably surmised by now, Josiah could not be with me. He's actually traveling. He's going to visit his family in Wyoming for a reception of some sort. So a family thing up there. And so, yeah, he hopefully will be back next week, but he asked me to do this one solo. So first of all, I want to say I am sorry that this is a little late. Or later, I guess, getting out into the world. My wife got home from being in England for 15 days. So everything's kind of been a little bit slower around here, kind of been on pause. So that's why this is coming out a little bit later, but you probably didn't even realize that because you just download it whenever your phone downloads it and you just listen to it whenever you see that it's available. So I it's not on YouTube yet, but it will be. I don't think you guys care, but I just thought I'd say that. So sorry, it's a little late. Last week, wow, what a fun time. 200th episode. Realized after we published everything and went for about an hour that Josiah had forgot to turn on our mic. And so we were using the webcam's mic. And so the audio is really bad. We really apologize for that. 200 episodes in and we have a bad audio thing. So, I think it's also partially due to the fact that I was about 30 minutes later than I said I would be, because of traffic and because I was just late and we didn't have a chance to test it. So anyway, thank you for all of you who did participate. You sent in some voice messages and we played those on the show. It's after we did the show, I put out a bunch of, messages and everything asking people to contribute and to say, things and answer the magic questions. And our good friend of the show, Kait Lane, sent in something, but it was too late to make the cut. So Kait was on our show in episode 137. And so you could check that out if you'd like, but she's just a real sweet person. We did a live episode with her because she lives here in the Denver area. Back when I still had Make Your Mark Design, she came to the shop and we had a nice little conversation in episode 139 about print on demand. She does all kinds of really cool things in the print on demand space. So with all of that said, I just wanted to go ahead and play her clip if I can find it here. And this is what she had to say based on the prompt of the magic questions and answering the magic questions for our episode 200.
Hey guys, it's Kait. In business, we experience wins and we experience things that make us feel like we failed. So I wanted to kind of share an example of both of those things. So, a win I recently experienced was having the opportunity to play with Shopify and get a store live. So that was very satisfying to learn the ins and outs of that um, web setup. And now I have a live store that I can say that I was a part of. That was very satisfying. I would say a failure that I experience often is a lack of consistency and execution. Now, those are personal things. So, just a reminder to everyone out there, you have to, do some self love and some self care and have some self awareness. And in turn, you'll probably find success in anything you pursue. I just want to say that the print on demand cast has been really helpful to my business because Travis and Josiah are very passionate and they're willing to share their knowledge. Their consistency with posting episodes is inspiring. So I'm very thankful to that. Yeah, thank you guys.
I love the way she ends up with saying that we're consistent, but she didn't mention that we're tardy sometimes. Yeah, so thank you to Kait and to everyone who left messages, voice messages for the 200th episode. If you ever want to leave us a voice message, you can always go to our SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/print on demand cast, and you can leave us a message there just like Kait did, and we might play it on the show. Who knows? You never know. But I think we'll just keep going. It's time, your favorite time, my favorite time. It's time for the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right. Well, earlier today, my wife just got home, like I mentioned earlier. She's been doing some laundry and such, and she tripped and fell while carrying a hamper full of ironed clothes. And it all happened so fast. There was really, honestly, nothing I could do. I just sat there and watched it all unfold. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's your weekly dad joke. Share that with somebody. Share that at a poker night, or I don't know, on the bus, or with your family. I just thought it was funny. All right. So the point of interest this week is the fact that there is no point of interest. We just don't have one. So I decided that the point of interest would be the fact that I made a video bumper out of one of our old audio bumpers. If you've been a long time listener, you know, Josiah and I used to have all kinds of audio bumpers for the main event and for the point of interest. And so I took it upon myself to just jump into Canva and play around a little bit. And frankly, that's part of why this episode's late, because I was learning the Canva app and learning how to do video in it. I'd never done that before. And it's pretty intuitive. There's a couple things you got to find, but and it's obviously doesn't have the power of something like a Adobe Premiere or something like that, or even a CapCut, but it was pretty cool. So anyway, that's really it. So let's go ahead and jump to, if I can find it, let's jump to this week's main event.
On a cold, dreary night in September of 2020, Travis Ross and Josiah Cifuentes created the Print on Demand cast. This is the main event.
So there you have it. My handiwork for the last, I don't know, hour, half hour, 45 minutes. Okay, an hour. Well, today's main event, we're going to be talking about the difference between selling print on demand on Shopify and the difference and versus Etsy. And we've talked a lot about both of these platforms, probably more Etsy, because that seems to be where a lot of our listeners are starting and actually selling on. But Shopify, obviously, we've mentioned that a lot, and it is kind of the website of choice if you're building a brand off of one of those platforms like Etsy or Amazon. But when people think about selling print on demand, they usually think about one of these two places. They think about Etsy or Shopify. But I think if we back that up a little bit, I think it's really that they're thinking about two different strategies. And they're trying to figure out which strategy is for them. Although there are other strategies, print on demand does not have to be limited to online sales. And I have actually 3 orders right now in the queue that I am producing for local. One's a maternity, like a nonprofit maternity, helping like unwed mothers, doing some shirts for them. I'm doing some hats for a landscaping company, they cut down trees and such, like things like that. And then another order of t-shirts for family reunions. So all of that is because I have been in the community. I have a website. I have a Google place pin, I guess, or on the Google Maps. I have a place that people can call. And so both both of those, or all three of those actually, well, the hat person I know, so they actually used to go to our church, but I've been doing their stuff for several years, their hats and their shirts. But the other two, literally, one called me on the phone from the Google Maps, and one emailed me from the Google Map that sent them to my website, which they then emailed me from. So all of that to say, I'm using print on demand just in my everyday business because I don't have a DTG machine anymore. I have to get transfers and have them sent, and then I have a heat press, and I order the shirts, and I have a business license so I can get wholesale on the shirts, and then I print them, and then I provide that service to other people beyond e-commerce. But I digress. Wow, did I digress? I digressed a lot because we're talking about print on demand, specifically on Shopify and Etsy. So I'm just going to do a real easy, quick pros and cons list of both platforms, and then we'll kind of wrap it up or summarize it at the end. Without Josiah to bounce things off of, I'm guessing this is probably going to be a little bit shorter podcast, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. I hope you still find value in it. All right. So selling on your own site, or in this case, Shopify. You can also do this with like WordPress and an e-commerce plugin like WooCommerce or something else that you're using on your WordPress website. But a lot of people really jump into Shopify for the ease of use. So some of the pros of going with Shopify. You know what? Before we do that, I do want to talk about the strategies that I was talking about, because there really are two strategies. And then I went off on that tangent about local, but they're really the two strategies that most people think about is like building a brand that encompasses, a specific niche. They jump at it and they go for it. And all of their designs, all of their products really are trying to serve a particular demographic in a specific niche. The other way that kind of became really popular back when Amazon Merch on Demand came on the scene, which at the time was called Merch by Amazon, was just getting up as many potential products as you can, finding trending designs or design ideas or trending events and designing around those, finding other things that were selling well in the marketplace and improving on them. Those were a lot of strategies. And because you could upload so many products to Merch by Amazon, it was easy to just get outside of a specific niche, because people were having, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of designs on these platforms. And obviously it's hard to have 100,000 designs. Heck, it's hard to have 1,000 designs that are really just like one niche. So they weren't really building a brand. They were just throwing out as many different niches as possible. And then from there, they would transfer some of their better sellers to an Etsy or an Amazon Seller Central side or the Walmart side, because all of these platforms were relatively inexpensive. Some would even take their best sellers and create a niche and go the Shopify route. But those are really the two kind of ideas. You're either doing a brand, you're really niching down, or you're being really wide with all your niches and you're trying to capitalize on trends and things like that. So for the niche thing, the brand thing, I think Shopify kind of rises to the top, or like I said, a WordPress site. And then on the other side, for kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, really Etsy kind of shines there, as well as a Merch by Amazon, a Redbubble, Teespring, all of those other places, as well as the Amazon Seller Central side, where you are the seller of record, whereas Amazon Merch on Demand is a royalty-based platform where you get paid a royalty. You're actually licensing your designs to Merch by Amazon, and they pay you a royalty. You're not the seller of record. Amazon is. So, but they both can have the same strategy. It's just a little bit different. So Amazon Seller Central is more like Etsy. If somebody buys something on Etsy, you have to fulfill it. Same thing with Amazon Seller Central. Whereas Merch on Demand, they make the product and they send it to the customer because it's their customer. And then you just get paid a royalty. All right, enough about that. Let's talk about selling on Shopify, the pros. All right, let me look at my list here. The first pro I wrote down was brand control. You have complete control over your brand, including the design and user experience of your website. And that's, I mean, if somebody goes to Etsy, they're going to see the Etsy site, and that's all you can do. You can change the products, but everybody's product page is basically going to look the same. It's going to have a nice little banner at the top, an announcement section, and then your products. On Shopify, there's so many different things you can do, including you can, having a blog on your site, or having other products on your site, having physical products on your site beyond your print on demand, having an email sign up right there that pops up on your site, all of these different things, contests, and all these other things, which kind of come into the next point, which is customizability. You are able to really customize Shopify or your own website. If it's WordPress, there's a lot of plugins for WordPress as well. But you can really customize Shopify in particular, including your layout, like I was just mentioning, and your product page can look different. Your checkout process can be, really nice. All of that is completely customizable. And then because you can do all of that stuff, it's a lot easier to collect customer data, which is the next one. So because these are people that are coming to your website, they're actually your customers. And you have full access over that customer data. And you can use that customer data for marketing, for analytics, figuring out which is which is selling better, what time of day people are buying your products. I mean, all kinds of things. Which day of the week is it best to launch a sale versus another day? So there's all kinds of things that you can get with your customer data that you can't get in other with these other platforms, and you can really, really dig into that. There's also the potential for less competition. And I know that sounds a little bit strange, but the truth is that once the customer is on your website, the only products they're going to see are your products. If somebody goes to Etsy and they don't like your, I always use nurse mug as an example. They don't like your nurse mug. Well, they'll just go back to the search and find somebody else's. Doesn't matter if they're on now they can still do that in Google. Obviously, if they found your site via Google and they don't like your products, they can go back and do another search, but you have a little bit better, you've captured that initial click, which will go a long way, versus on Etsy, people know that there's an inexhaustible amount of options, where on your site, they maybe see a couple, if you have a nurse based site, they see, 4, 5, 6, 10 mugs, and they know that's it. And so they're going to choose one of those likely, as opposed to Etsy, where there's, a million of these things. So that's potential for less competition. The next thing I've got here is SEO benefits. And I mentioned earlier, you can do a blog, which you can't do on Etsy or Amazon or any of these other places. And what that does is it allows for better SEO. And what SEO is search engine optimization. And what that means is that Google is a search engine that is ranking, and they have an algorithm that ranks your website on different search terms. So if someone searches nurse mug, you're going to come up somewhere in the however many sites, or maybe one or two of your pages. And they're not only just ranking your site, they're ranking every page on your site, if it has been indexed. And that's another thing that it's a little bit, it can get a little bit techie. Okay. But what that means is that, Google has actually seen and ranked and indexed your site in their database, if you will, of web pages. And it could be not just your site, like some of your pages could be indexed, but some of them might not be. And there's tricks and things that you can do to actually make sure that you're getting indexed. And you can even do that with some Google tools. And but my point here is that your SEO, that you can write these keyword rich blog posts that are going to hopefully tell people or tell Google what your site is about, and then hopefully maybe even rank it up higher. You can also do really cool things like get backlinks when someone else links to your site, and you can do that manually. You can just reach out to people and ask them for a backlink, a link to your blog post about product A, that you have a link to product A in the blog post. So you're hoping people would come there, find it, and then want product A, and then they click it and they go to the product page to actually check out. Or you could maybe have some people link to your actual products, and you could give them a commission if you wanted to. So again, the options on this thing are really endless. You have all kinds of opportunities to not only just do SEO, but, work with other people and getting backlinks. All of these things are going to hopefully boost your the authority score of your website, as well as the organic rankings for not only your products, but the different pages in Google. And then scalability is the next one I've got here. It's not often that you hear about people doing, I did 5 million on Etsy last year. Now there are people out there that do, but you hear many more Shopify stories like that. Hey, I did 5 million on Shopify selling wall art, or selling, or whatever, selling socks, personalized socks. That's a real thing. So scalability, in my opinion, is much more possible, if you will, as far as like scaling your numbers on a Shopify site or your own website. It's also more customizable to help you get to that scalability with those plugins I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of things you can do to build social credit, if you will, like social media and different things like that, that you're probably not going to be able to have access to the tools to be able to do on Etsy. And then targeted marketing that you're able to do with your own site, such as like email marketing and things like that, can raise the lifetime value of each customer when they come, because you can remarket to them and hopefully have them buy again. And it's not a lot of times you hear raving fans talk about an Etsy store, but you hear them talk about, brands that have their own website. They may not even know that it's a Shopify store. They don't necessarily care, but they're really excited about that particular brand and what it represents and how they're integrated with that in their lifestyle. And that is a real thing that you just don't see on Etsy and Amazon and Walmart and things like that, because those sites they think of the site itself. They think, oh, I'm buying from Etsy, I'm buying from Amazon, I'm buying from Walmart. They don't think that I'm buying from your brand unless you have your own website. And so that right there the ability to create raving fans is a huge, huge pro for Shopify. And then finally, here in the pros column is the profit margins. You don't have to pay the 15% to Amazon, or the 6% plus the listing fee, plus the. You get all of it. It all comes to you. So you might consider filing taxes, and I'll leave that to you. But they talk about nexus in your state, and if you're selling in a certain state and you make a sale in that state, yes, you should pay sales tax. There's other people that are way more qualified to talk about that. But aside from that, the rest of the money's yours. You don't have to pay Etsy or Amazon or anybody else, because it's your site. It's your property. So the potential for those higher profit margins really is there. That's a pretty big pro as well. All right, let's get into the cons of selling on Shopify or your own website. The first one is the obvious one, is traffic generation. You will have to invest in marketing, both paid and free, like social media. Um, you'll probably want to do some SEO optimization. In other words, each page, or pay somebody to do that. So you're going to need to have a higher understanding of how to get people to your site, both paid ways to market it, as well as organic ways to boost your rank in the search engines. And if you don't want to learn that, um, you're going to probably need to pay somebody to do some of that for you. Otherwise, no one's going to come to your site. So traffic generation is a con on Shopify and or your own website, unless you already have a big following. I mean, if you're, if you're listening to this and your name is Will Ferrell and you're a really funny comedian, you probably won't have a problem getting people to come to your site. And also, hi, Will, why are you listening? But if you're not, if that's not your name and you're just the average Joe that nobody knows, you're going to have to figure out the traffic part to get any sales at all. Another con is the upfront costs. Like I just said, you're going to have some initial setup costs, including, like a domain name, web hosting. If you're not doing it with Shopify, you'll have to host that WordPress account or whatever. On Shopify, you have subscription fees. You get like 3 months free, but then after that, or for $1, I think. And then after that, I think the lowest plan, or one of the lowest plans that really makes sense, is probably like $30 a month. So, and then obviously, like I said, hiring people to help you market, people to help you rank organically, hiring designers or developers for the site part of it and making it look the right way, and all of those things if you don't want to do that. So there's some upfront costs to selling on Shopify. Another one is your technical knowledge. I kind of alluded to that earlier, but it does require a certain level of technical knowledge, or the need to hire somebody with that expertise, which takes us back to the upfront costs. Another thing to consider as a con is maintenance, ongoing maintenance and updates to keep the site secure and functional. So like plugins and things like that, they're constantly rolling out new updates for those things. Sometimes they'll work for a really long time. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes Shopify or WordPress or somebody will change something and something else will break. And so there is a maintenance aspect to it. Now, a lot of times you can get somebody on Fiverr to go in and jump in and figure it out if you trust that person, or, a buddy, or you might have the expertise yourself. But it is something that you need to consider. You need to maintain this site. And so do you have the technical expertise to do that? Or do you have the money to pay somebody to do that? And then finally, in the con section is customer trust. Building trust with new customers can be challenging without an established reputation of a known marketplace, because if you're selling on Etsy, you're kind of like standing on their shoulders, and people trust Etsy. They don't know you. And so if you don't have Etsy kind of in your corner, will they still trust you? That's the question. Now, I think as culture has shifted to more of an e-commerce culture, um, while trust is still important, I think there's a lot more trust in the marketplace. If somebody finds something online, it's not as hard for them to buy it. However, in order for somebody to become a raving fan, they really are going to have to trust you. And that can take some time without having like standing on the shoulders of a platform like Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, which already have tons and tons of customer loyalty and trust. Even if they hate them, they still know them and they trust that they're either going to get their stuff or they're going to get a refund, and they're fine with that. All right. So let's jump into the pros of selling on Etsy, and let's see what I've got here. A couple built-in traffic. Of course, that's the first one. You have access to Etsy's massive established customer base, people who have bought before on the platform. And it reduces your need for a lot of your marketing. Now, I would still recommend doing marketing um, because it's a good idea. It's good to create awareness. And, especially if you want to start with your brand with the idea of eventually taking it to Shopify, then start building your email list today. The best time to start your email list is 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. So make sure that that is like on your radar and very high up on the priority list, because even if you are selling on Etsy and you haven't gone the Shopify route, it's still very important. And you can start collecting emails via social media, via even the Etsy checkout page and your description. You can have a link there, and then you can also follow up with each sale with a thank you for buying. Please sign up to my list. If you do, I'll give you a blank. Give them some type of a lead magnet there, and you'll start building your list. And then when you do jump to Shopify, you have people to tell. And so there's that. The next one is ease of use. It really is a simple setup process to start an Etsy store. It's not hard at all. And it's a very user-friendly interface. It's perfect for somebody who's never done any e-commerce and you want to try it. It really is simple. It's very simple to put up a product. They really have done a really good job of walking you through it. It's actually, in my opinion, it's the most simple of all of the e-commerce platforms, including, except for, I guess I take that back. Merch by Amazon or Amazon Merch on Demand is probably easier if you are in that program. But you have a lot of limitations there as far as how many products you can upload when you start, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For kind of the big three that I always call big three, Etsy, Amazon Seller Central, and Walmart. Etsy's definitely the most user-friendly of those three. So it is pretty easy. If you're a beginner, might be good to check it out. Like I was mentioning earlier, community and trust. Etsy has established a reputation and even a community of people that know, like, and trust Etsy. And it's not even, it's funny that we say that because they're not buying from Etsy. They're buying on Etsy's platform from you and me. And yet Etsy gets the credit. But that is a plus. That is a feather in your cap. Just like I was saying about the difference between Shopify and Etsy. You have them in your corner and people know, like, well, they at least trust them. If they know them and they trust them, they may or may not like them. But for our purposes, that really is a big pro. It's also cost effective. So you have a lower upfront cost. You don't have to pay for developers, and you don't have to pay for hosting. You don't have to pay really for much of anything. There's really no fees for setting up a store. You only have to pay that 20 cents per active listing fee, when it goes live, and then you get 4 months of it being live. And then you can do whatever you want with it during that time. You can do a sale, you can promote it on social media, whatever you want to do. And then you would have to renew it again in 4 months. But, for most people, that's a lot less than what you would spend if you were doing a Shopify store and you had to pay for the domain and the hosting and, and the marketing, all of that marketing stuff that, to get the traffic there, et cetera, et cetera. So it is cost effective as a pro. It also has a very focused audience. Etsy has a demographic. And to me, this is really, really unique, or this is interesting if you take advantage of this. If you are selling on Etsy, you can try to sell, t-shirts that have monster trucks on them. But I don't know that you're going to be that successful, because Etsy's demographic is not people that are going to, for the most part, is not people that are going to wear monster truck t-shirts. Okay. And so when you think about the type of person, the type of audience that Etsy has already created, and yes, this is stereotyping people, and it's not 100% across the board. Of course, we're talking about millions of people. They're not all the same. However, there is a tendency for these people to enjoy looking for unique items, for personalized items, for handmade items, for vintage items, things of that nature. And that can be beneficial for you as you think through your product selection. That's a big, big pro. You don't have that with your own website because nobody knows you. You don't have an audience, probably, again, unless you're Will Ferrell. So, all right. So let's jump into the cons of Etsy. And wow, 35 minutes. I'm talking a lot. All right, cons of Etsy. First of all, the marketplace fees can add up over time. Your listing fee, and when you sell something, you do have to pay a percentage of that sale as well as a new listing fee because that item sold and now you have to restock it, even though it's a print on demand item and it doesn't matter. But that's another way that Etsy gets, that's how they get paid. And so those processing fees over time just immediately, I guess it's not over time, they just reduce your profit margin. You make less if you sell, one thing for $20 on your Shopify store and one thing for $20 on your Etsy store. You're going to make less on Etsy. Now, that's if obviously you still have to advertise, and so you're going to have other costs on Facebook Market or Facebook ads and Instagram ads for your Shopify store that you don't necessarily have to do for your Etsy store. Although I would argue that you can, and Etsy likes it when you drive traffic externally to their website and probably boosts you in the algorithm, but that's for another episode. But my point here is that, on the whole, if you kind of apples to apples, your profit margin on a product, taking away all the advertising, is going to be more, or it's going to be less on Etsy. So that is definitely a con. All right. Sorry, I had to yell at a dog that was barking upstairs. So I had to pause that. Let's go with our next con. The con here is limited site customization. You have less control over the way your site looks, basically. I mean, if somebody's coming to Etsy or to your store, it's still Etsy. It doesn't really look that different. And I mentioned that as a pro for Shopify. But yeah, so compared to your own site, there's just less customization and that you can actually do. So the next one would be competition. There's tons of people selling on Etsy. There's high competition. And like I said before, if they don't like your product, they can just go back to the search bar and keep searching until they find something that they do. And so that can make it challenging to stand out. That's why we talk about great listing photos, great mock-ups, really trying to stand out with your images. The first thing that they see when they do the search is your thumbnail. How does that look? Do you have it really far back in the image so it's hard to read the text if there's text on it, or see the design or whatever? Or you know what I'm saying? So like that is a very important piece of the puzzle here. And so all of these different things you need to do to try to stand out because there is so much competition, which is definitely a con. The other thing that you have to worry about with Etsy that you don't have to worry about with Shopify is like policy changes. As a Amazon seller for 10 years now, I can tell you that they have changed the way they treat sellers more times than I have changed my socks in the last, since I started on Amazon. The wind changes and they change a policy. There's so many different policies. It's the same thing on Etsy and Walmart. Maybe it's different, or maybe it's less, but it's probably not. So you always have to pay attention to that thing, and you're subject to those policies and changes. And so you might not even know something changed, and all of a sudden you get dinged and your store gets shut down and you had no idea you even did anything wrong. So that is a major con, because you just don't know. I have talked to so many people over the years who have had their Amazon accounts suspended for one thing or another because they didn't realize that they were violating a policy. And there's also been, kind of false positives as far as Amazon's concerned, and they've suspended people. So is Etsy. Etsy's known for suspending new accounts. And it just happens, and we are kind of at their whim, and we can try to do the things that are necessary to not get suspended. But occasionally you just can't control a platform that isn't yours at the end of the day. So policy changes, big con, because it can lead to suspension. It can lead to a lot of bad things for you, because you're basically renting that internet real estate versus owning it, like with your own site, like Shopify or WordPress. And the last con I'm going to talk about is brand identity. And this really is kind of similar to, your customization options with the way it looks, but it's harder to establish a brand identity when you're piggybacking on Etsy or Amazon. You might put that picture in your listing photos that has your brand logo on it or whatever, and try to talk about it. Maybe you have a watermark and all of that stuff. But customers they really do associate the purchases with Etsy or with Amazon versus with you, where on Shopify, they would associate it with whatever the name of the store is that's at the top of the Google bar there, it just makes sense. So it's more difficult to establish a brand identity. You can do it, and a lot of people have, and it really can be a launching off point for, like I mentioned before, to doing Shopify later. So, okay. So where should you begin? Well, as you probably figured out by now, it depends. That's the answer. You've listened this long, and the answer is, well, it depends. It really does depend on what your business goals are. It depends on how many resources you have. How much money do you have to spend on this thing? How much time do you have to spend on this thing? You can spend money, you can spend time, one or the other. You're going to do one or the other. And so how much of that do you have? That's a big determining factor. And then what's your level of experience with websites, with e-commerce, with print on demand, with business? All of those things should come into your decision. What level are you at in print on demand? As an aside, just go to episode 172 to figure out what level you're at. It's a great episode. We talk about the 4 different stages of a print on demand business, and you can find yourself in one of those 4. And we also talk about how you can move to the next stage. So check out episode 172. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program. So it all depends on where you're at with your goals, like I said, your resources, your financial resources, your time resources, and then your experience, your technical know-how. All of those things will factor into this decision. If you prefer having full control, and you're willing to invest in marketing, learn marketing, invest in site maintenance, making sure everything's up, and then selling on your own, that might be your best option. If you want a simpler setup, you're a little bit nervous about this, you're a little gun shy, you're not 100% sure if this is something that you want to be doing long term, that's kind of a problem in and of itself, because this isn't going to be an overnight thing anyway, but I digress. But if you want something that's a little bit simpler, has a little bit easier user interface, and then also it has even a ready-made customer base that you can take advantage of, Etsy could be, more suitable. I typically tell people that Etsy is probably the easiest to get started. But the danger in telling people that it's easy is that they think it's going to be easy. What do you mean, Travis? I guess I shouldn't tell people it's easy, because it's not. Like, creating a listing is simple on Etsy. Creating a listing is simple. but being consistent over time, doing the things that are going to grow your Etsy business or your Amazon business or your print on demand business or your Shopify business for that matter is not easy. It's hard and it will take a long time. It will take time to create customers and either create customers or have so many things out there that you're found everywhere. To put them in all these different places is not easy. So the idea is simple, but the execution is not easy and it is challenging, and you will get frustrated and you will get tired of creating listings. That's one of the reasons we talk about, hiring virtual assistants to do the things that you don't want to do. And so you can focus on the things that you do want to do so you can stay motivated to do those things. If you're not motivated to do those things, it's going to be a long road. So I think that's about it for this episode. I got to get this downloaded and then uploaded and then, all the descriptions and titles and all that stuff put up there, get it up on YouTube, get it out to you guys. So I think we're going to end it there. And so if you are new, go ahead and head over to our Facebook group, printondemandcast.com/Facebook. Join our Facebook group. We'd love to hang out with you over there. And then if you want to leave a message like Kait did, you can go to our SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/printondemandcast. Excuse me. And I really think that's it. Sign up to our VIP list. You probably heard the advertisements before and after for those. So I think that's about it. I'm going to sign off now if I can find the final little bumper thing or a little outro thing. But I really appreciate you guys being with me for episode 201 of the Print on Demand cast. And for Josiah, I'm Travis. And we'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand cast. See ya. That's the wrong one. So why don't we do this one instead?
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.